Welcome to The Founder's Mind. This is your host, Adam Muchler. On today's episode, I have Caitie McCabe, founder and owner of Caitie McCabe Photography. You'll hear how Caitie turned a serendipitous gift into a life passion and then into a business. Caitie has carved out a market that feeds her interests and grows her company. Listen and pick up great insights on taking your passion and turning it into your career. Caitie, welcome to The Founder's Mind.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited to have you also. Why don't we start with, for our listeners and people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about what you're working on at the moment.
So I'm a kids and lifestyle commercial photographer. And at the moment, I'm just approaching my slow season. And so I'm actually really excited. This is my favorite time of year. I get to slow down and kind of review all the mess that I've made in my computer hard drives and clean up things. And
what got you started in your in the photography space?
So photography started because I would spend summers with my grandparents, and my grandmother got really exhausted by me because I have a lot of energy, and so she handed me a camera mainly to get me to just like stop talking for 5 seconds. And I think I was in like 5th grade, and then I just took a jillion photos of, whatever a 5th grade girl takes photos of, which are like flowers and bugs and whatever. And then my parents figured out that it was the only thing that kept me occupied for long enough to not annoy them. Like my grandma was like, I hacked something with this kid. Like if you give her a camera, she goes off by her own and she doesn't bother you. So my parents are like, give us the camera. So from 5th grade on, I was just the kid with the camera in my hands. And I think it was mainly a way to get me to stop talking, but it worked. And then I kept photographing throughout all middle school, high school, whatever. And then I was encouraged by a friend to apply to art school, and it was the only school I got into. So then I went to art school.
There you go.
Yeah, the world chose for me what I was going to end up doing.
It's a good segue into what gets you energized about the work you're doing.
People always ask this, but it's more, I like creating ridiculous scenes. So I think my brain exists in a ridiculous way, where I just laugh I have this whole thing going on in my head all the time, and I'm always like giggling away. And so what I like is to being able to kind of create these insane setups with children. And so like, I love, my personal work is the box project. I don't know if you've seen that, but every year I do a box send out for my promo material, and I spend an entire year planning those boxes and working on those boxes. And so I just basically create a scenario, that's like out of this world. So it's like a kid who is a rocket scientist or whatever. And then we spend an entire year being like, if this kid built 400 rockets, like what would happen, how would they tell an art director how to be, they'd build a safety video. And like, if this kid did this, so just answering those questions. And so this past year we did spy boxes. Because it just felt
5.
Spy, like secret spy. So we did these kind of cool boxes where the box looked like a normal promo piece, but there was a second layer to it, and you lifted it up, and underneath it was a secret spy kit. And the whole premise of it was that the kid and I were in cahoots to share a secret spy kit, but we had to pretend that it was a photographer's promo piece. So it was super fun. It was just you're just constantly going back to that, like, okay, does this make sense from a kid's perspective if the kid was the one who is creating this whole scene? And so it's so fun to spend an entire year just like pretending that I'm a 10-year-old who thinks they're a spy. So it's just that gets me energized, just trying to put myself in the feet of the subject, and then trying to create even crazier scenes from that. And so it's super fun. It's perfect fun. Yeah, they always make fun of me on set, because what ends up happening is like we'll be sitting there and we'll have all the adults, in this one mind meld situation trying to answer a problem and really think about something. And I'll just be like, yo, Mila, like, what would you do? She's just like, oh, I would do this. It's like, great. Okay, so that's how we're going to photograph it. Like, just the quickest way to the answer is like, why are we trying to like pretend we're 10? Just ask the 10-year-old. Like, ask her. She'll tell you. And so that's, that's always like the fun when the moment where I just get too tired to mind meld and I just start asking the kids.
Yeah. And I mean, it's actually a nice experience for kids, again, from my perspective, when you have just a regular conversation sometimes. You went to design school.
Yeah.
And then you did not go directly into your own business.
No, I ran away.
I
ran away and joined the circus. I went and joined AmeriCorps. I taught for a year. And so I worked within the middle school environment and taught, quote unquote, taught and tutored math and English, ran after school programs and all that kind of stuff. So I did that for a year. And then I stayed in Louisiana for another year because I didn't want to come home. So I've learned through many attempts at full-time work that I am not meant to have a boss. I am meant to run my own little world. So I kind of knew that working for Apple Retail that I didn't want to dedicate my time into making a career out of Apple Retail. But I mean, my, oh my, they're awesome to work for.
And a lot, like in the coaching work that I do, this is what I find at least, there are a lot of things that I am teaching individuals and teams that they don't have any access to this type of learning or education that Apple taught me as an 18-year-old.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I always tell people the one thing that we learned, I asked shortly after Apple, when I was still starting my business, I opened up I worked for an ad agency, and some of the stuff that they were, the walls they were hitting based on like working with each other and all that kind of stuff. I was like, guys, like this is all stuff that they taught me at Apple. Like, let me teach you how to fix this. And one of the main lessons that I always bring up is Apple teaches you, or at least my Apple taught us, that they're not embarrassed if you don't know the answer. Like, they'd rather you be like, yo, I don't know the answer to this, but I know the guy at the other end of the bar because I was a technician, like knows the answer. So let me go get him. And like, you're not shamed for asking your fellow employees for the answer. And that is huge because it doesn't seem like that big of a thing, but it's huge because what it teaches you is like, you don't have to be the egotistic end all be all to be a good employee. You're a better employee if you don't screw up something because you refuse to ask somebody.
I'm curious, because I think one of the questions and one of the things that comes up for founders is, how did you get into running your own business? Like, what was the tipping point? How did you jump in from working for someone to working for yourself?
So I've jumped in and out a couple of times. So I left college, knew I was not ready to start in the photography world. I wasn't ready. So I wanted to do Peace Corps, but I couldn't do Peace Corps because I had like family weddings and stuff, and they're basically like, you're never coming back again. So no. So I chose AmeriCorps, went to AmeriCorps, did Apple Retail, kind of did photo, tried to make photo a thing, but just couldn't figure out, was not a business owner at that point. And I then got into a program called the Young Photographers Alliance that it was like a 6-week mentorship program. And I moved back, I transferred to Apple Fifth, did the Young Photographers Alliance, and met my stock photo agent who represents all of my stock work. But at that time, I had no actual portfolio really to speak of. I had a bunch of cute pictures of kids and then a whole book of really serious photos of my friends in fields when I was trying to be a fine artist. So I had no real, and a lot of photos of AmeriCorps and New Orleans and stuff like that. So not really a clear portfolio or idea of what I wanted to do at all. So I met her and she signed me as a stock photographer, seeing where I should be going in my career better than I was able to see, and basically mentored me for the following year on building a portfolio, hooking me up with people saying, listen, you need to do more photo. Like, if you want to do lifestyle and kids photography, we need this type of portfolio work. And so she helped me kind of build my portfolio into something that was real. And so at that point, I had left Apple and was freelancing as a tech person for real estate companies. I was just doing like cleaning up computers
Sure.
for old men who had been in the business forever. And so I was doing that and quote unquote running my photography business. So basically that was a couple of years of running my photography business while fixing computers and babysitting and doing, big bargaining and stealing. And then I officially started in 2013. Got the LLC, made it a real business in 2013. Ran it for a couple of years, and then freaked out and got a full-time job for about a week and a half. And it was crazy. I wasn't sure what I was doing. I was like, this business isn't going anywhere. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to get a full-time job. So I got a full-time job as a project manager at an ad agency. And about a week and a half later, I got a call from Microsoft to do a campaign. So I was like, oh shit. I gotta go, guys. So that was fine. So I ended up doing the campaign, and the ad agency was super good and let me become a freelancer, part-time freelancer for them while I figured it out. And so that was it. So then I basically have waffled in and out. And now I'm back to being full-time photography again. So it's been a back and forth, being a business owner / freaking out that I'm not a good enough business owner / quitting because some big campaign comes along. And so that's been my tenure as an artist. So around winter time is when it slows down, and that's when I tend to start looking for full-time jobs. And so I've now rejigged in my head what wintertime means is a relaxation time, because my first couple of years in business, it was freak out, ask everybody for a full-time job, and get nervous, and then have to quit in March when business picks up again. So
it's so important to find something that not only energizes you, but that you love. And when you have to love it enough when it's hard, it's still okay.
Yeah. That's the one thing that always kind of is the downer when you're giving college talks or whatever. I wish I could record it because it's a comedy skit in itself. But when you're talking to all these kids and you say if you don't love this more than anything in the world, please do something else. Because it sucks because you're supposed to inspire all these people, but that is the most honest piece of advice I could give to anyone who's looking to get into the business world and the art world is you have to not be able to have another option. You have to say, this is the only thing I can see myself doing, because if you are in the least bit not passionate about this, you will hit a wall and you're going to quit right away. What keeps happening to me is I hit that wall, I quit, and I'm miserable. My friends and family are always like, please don't go take another job. Please don't do that, because you just become this very sad person that we don't like being around. Because I don't like it. And actually part of me wonders sometimes if I like running the business more than the photography part of it. I love photography and I love being creative, but I think I love running my business more. And I think that's probably why I've survived in this climate of everybody's an artist, is because I'm actually more of a business person than I am an artist. And that, I get super psyched about Excel spreadsheets and profit and loss statements. And that's not normal for artists. And just strategy and marketing correctly and just all this. I mean, sitting here and having strategy sessions with my business friends, and people are like, that's not normal for an artist. And that's probably why I've been able to survive, because my work is strong, but I know how to market to who my target is. And that is what a lot of artists mess up. So I've started to kind of help my artist friends be no, you photograph lipstick. Stop calling Bon Appetit. This is crazy. Stop it. What are you doing? And it's just but I like the magazine. And it's yeah, okay. I like shoes, but we all like things.
Maybe you'll see a lipstick ad that you shoot in Bon Appetit, and then it'll be the marriage of the things that you like.
Exactly. And if you want to photograph a Bon Appetit, that's fine, but they're going to need to open up your portfolio and see food work. I don't understand. But it's just that business mind is more important in art than the art itself, because there's a lot of better photographers than me out there. But it's just, if they're not marketing correctly, or they're not running their numbers, like there's a lot of artists that will, like, a company will call them and offer them, nothing for a job, and they'll take it because they want to photograph. And it's like, you have to be like, well, I can't afford to take that job. Like, and here's the numbers of why. Like, here's how much that shoot is going to cost me, and I'm going to lose money if I do that for you.
Yeah.
So as much as I would like to do that for you, from a business perspective, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah. No, I have a handful of friends that are incredibly creative, and are artists, and it's always a conversation.
Yeah. You can't just do that. Yeah, it's hard. And also, it's really hard, and it's also a hard lesson to learn. And I'm not sure if, like, I'm a born business person or I just did a very good job at screwing up my business when I opened it. And so that when I first opened my business, I put it all on credit cards, which was like the world's dumbest. But I was like 23. I was so stupid. What happened was I was friends with a ton of people I paid off school while I was in school, because I was at state school and bakery and babysitting and all that kind of stuff. So I had no school loans when I left, which was like incredible. But I had a lot of friends who had a ton of school loan debt. And so when I was starting my business, all the business classes said, go get a business loan. And I was like, loans are terrible. No, loans are bad. No loan. I don't want a loan. But so I was like, but I'll get an American Express card. Like, that makes sense. And so just like, I plummeted myself into a ton of credit card debt starting a business. And it was stupidity based, but it was also fear based, where it was that typical problem that a lot of photographers make, specifically where they think they need more equipment than they do. So I bought like all the lenses that I like ever could see. And I like bought all the lights. Like, even though I had one specific kit that I photographed every job with, I thought a real photographer would have a shelf full of fancy equipment, and nobody's going to take me seriously unless I have this fancy equipment. And so my tail got caught between my legs as I walked to eBay and started selling all of that stuff to try to, pay rent and do all that kind of thing. So that was the good mistake that I made in my business. I'm grateful for it. I'm still recovering from it. But I'm grateful for it because I took all the business classes online. There's like all these business classes that are online that are marketed towards photographers, and they cost like $1,000. And I was like, I need that. It's just like this crazy, it was a fear-based way of starting a business with a real not understanding of how finances work. And so now I'm much stronger as a business owner now, because I'm like, I'm never going back to that place. But it did hurt.
I can imagine.
That way. Yeah, it was terrible. It was a terrible way to start a business. And I had read all the books.
Well, how would you recommend someone start now, knowing what you know?
Not with credit cards. Not with credit cards. Not at all with credit cards. I mean, I think it's about being really, you in your heart, what the right decision is. And in my heart, I knew that I didn't need the lights and the lenses, but I made those decisions based on fear. I've noticed every single mistake I've made in my business has been based on fear, not on knowledge and understanding and what people have said. So when I've quit my business multiple times to start a full-time job that I wasn't passionate about or wasn't good at, it was because I was afraid of not succeeding in my business. When I went into credit card debt to buy lights that I don't even use, and I don't even to this day know how to use them, that was based on the fear that I wasn't going to be considered valid as a photographer. When I was doing super serious work that didn't fit me or my type of style or what I even liked doing, it was based on the fear that I wasn't going to be taken seriously as an artist. And so all of you could line it all up and be like fear-based, 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 fear-based. And unfortunately, what I've noticed is there's a lot of, I don't know if the right term is a pariah out there, but there's a lot of companies and people out there who are basically marketing towards the fear, where it's like, you need a business class, you need another business class, and you need another paid $2,500 a head portfolio review in order to be taken seriously. So the photography industry has a ton, and there's probably every industry, but I'm just entrenched in the photography industry. There's a ton of people out there that I'm sure with good intentions, but tend to market towards the fear in the photographers more than their need to be business owners. You know what I mean? And so, like, I'm sure that there's great business courses out there, and I understand that those people need to make money to make a living, but the people who purchase them tend to be buying them because they think that they need one more $900 online class. So yeah. I think the problem is the way we were teaching is great, or maybe it's great. I don't know. I didn't go to business school. I went to an art school that didn't take teaching business courses seriously, which is also another soapbox that I fight with them all the time about. I'm like at every alumni event, I'm like, have you taught a business class yet? But they, you know, whatever. I'm sure there's tons of business information out there that's solid and good. But the problem is when social media entered and entrepreneurship became incredibly romantic, it became a problem.
Yeah.
You also don't know who had money that was from like a lawsuit 10 years ago and that's what they started their business on. You know, you have no idea. And you also don't know, with social media, it's incredibly easy to look successful. So you have no idea who is calling their mom crying in the middle of the night saying that they don't have money for rent. Like you just have no idea who that person is. They could look great online. And so I've noticed there's also this huge shift, and everyone thinks that in order to be cool and successful, you need to be an entrepreneur. And that's just not true. Like there are plenty of people who would be happier working for someone else. I am not one of those people, but I do in my daily life work for clients every single day. So I am technically working. I just have 70 bosses in a year as opposed to one. And so there is a world where I have bosses. It's just what I never have been able to exist successfully in, and maybe one day I will, but currently I have not been successful, is the structure of business and the structure of, you know, having to, like little things like having to request certain days off for vacation just irritated me. And it's an absurd thing to irritate me about, like, I have to tell someone that I want to go on a trip. Like, it's just like my whole body is just someone who just exists better on my own than I do in a structured environment. But I have friends who are incredibly creative, but hate business ownership and have tried, but they hate being the HR person and the finance person, and you know, they hate being all of that, and they find
even being the salesperson.
You have to constantly be selling yourself, and so that's really hard for it's really hard for me, and I have friends who are much more introverted, and like they find themselves struggling because they don't have time to do their artwork. Like I don't wake up every morning running around and taking photos. 90% of my life is marketing, emailing. Like I email, you know, 200 or 300 clients a week, just cold emails, like every single week. Hello, my name's Caitie, and I would like to photograph for you, you know, and that's most of the time I'm not photographing. Most of the time I'm running a business. And so luckily I find I have a great passion in business ownership, which is why I like it.
Yeah.
But my friends who just have a passion for drawing don't like the business ownership, and they might be much better off being an on-site illustrator for a company where they just walk into work every day and they have to deal with and they like the structure of that, and the anxiety of running a business is not necessarily for them. So I have a lot of friends who will come to me and be like, oh, I think I'm going to quit my job and start a business. And I'm like, do you really, like, that may not be the right path.
Who's a founder you admire and why?
Oh my gosh. There's so many. Who do I want to pick? I think that I really admire the Being Boss ladies. And I started listening to their podcast I think it was about 2 years ago. And it's just transformed how I view myself in my business. Like all, these nuggets of knowledge or whatever. Part of that is like self-discovery, but the majority of it is listening to the Being Boss ladies and being like, I am not the only person out there who finds this difficult. And I am not the only person out here who even loves when it's difficult, but just needs to know that somebody else finds it difficult. Like that's it. So they're great, and they have a ton of great information, and they also have like business courses and stuff that they teach, but they're not crazy expensive, and when you take them, you actually learn something. Like what they helped me do they had a podcast a while ago about like finding your target market and like your dream client and stuff like that, which is like, it's everywhere. If you look into business and branding, identifying your dream client is everywhere.
Yeah.
But they had some really good information about that, and it totally transformed how I started marketing, and so it was really helpful. So I like them. I think they're awesome, and they're just real. It doesn't seem like they're trying to sell you a bag of goods. It seems like they've gone through it. They're telling you when it's hard, but they're telling you when you're being dramatic, and it's great.
Keeping it real, which we appreciate.
Exactly. That's what it's called. Keeping it real. Yeah, that's what it is.
What's one thing the world is missing right now?
Honestly, which is like probably the word of the year because of everything going down in politics. But I think I just keep going back to this social media. I love social media, but I think it's super fun, and I think it's leveraged business, and I think it's created opportunities for a ton of people who otherwise would not have gotten opportunities, which is why net neutrality is super important. But I think the problem that we have now is this pressure to be cooler than we are.
Yep.
And I think that's always been a problem, but it used to kind of die in high school, but now it just goes throughout your entire life, and you don't just have to be this cool person during one networking event. Now you have to be this cool person every single day. Like, there's pressure to make your coffee look cooler than it is, and that's absurd. And like, I think it's because of my experience with teaching and my passion for international relations and politics and real problems in the world. I just can't handle the Instagram classes. I keep going to these things, and I totally understand that as a business owner, especially as a photographer and a creative business owner, I'm supposed to take Instagram and Snapchat and all those things seriously. But forgive me, I cannot care less about it. I just I don't want to sit here and make a business out of making people feel bad that their coffee is not cool enough. And I don't want to have a color scheme on my Instagram page in hopes that I'm going to get some group of followers that probably are never going to hire me. And so that's just, if I'm being honest and I'm living with that world, I don't care. And when I take pictures on Instagram, sometimes they're my photos. Sometimes I'm taking pictures of the kids my little brother when we go to laser tag, and I don't care if it matches a color scheme. And I keep trying to care, but I've just given up on caring. So,
well, I think it also,
if I, there it
depends on your goal, right? And I think there's, every now and then Gary Vee says something that I appreciate. He says a lot of stuff.
I like him.
But one of the things that he says that I think is at the core of any type of social media platform is just focusing on documenting, not creating. If you get caught up in creating something for the sake of creating it, it's not going to be engaging. You're not going to have much energy behind it. But if you just document what you're going through, and if we're being honest, that documentation might in fact be messy.
Yeah. That's what my life is.
And I think if that's what's the intention of creating that persona online, right? If the intention is, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm doing, this is what it looks like, this is what it feels like, then you will get people that resonate with that. But people also, there's this element that, there is a growing, I think, feeling that perfection is obviously fake. Like, we're getting to this point where like people start to feel that, which is great. Because it's important to be real, like we talked about earlier. I have one more question.
Yeah. Go on.
What's something you learned recently that blew your mind?
Oh my gosh. That's something I should prepare for. I'm not sure. I feel like I learn stuff all the time that I'm always amazed by. I think I learned recently, I've done a lot of business podcast dorking lately. And I keep hearing the same phrase over and over again, that I don't need to be everybody's photographer. And I think that's something that I have struggled with for a really long time, and I'm finally starting to get comfortable with it. And I've noticed that the comfort in not trying to be the photographer for everybody has blown my mind in ways that I didn't realize. Like, I've just felt calmer every single day. It's like, oh, like that person's not my customer, and that's okay. So it's not necessarily like any sort of amazing factoid about the world, but it is one of these little business things where you're like, oh, okay, that's awesome. I'm gonna go cook something because I don't have to be that person's photographer, and that's okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Just not needing to be as desperate for the work as you're expecting. Yeah.
Blew your mind equals revelation.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah. I'm sure of course I'm blanking. There's always a million facts, but I'm like, did you know? And I'm blanking on all of the cool ones.
You're just not drinking enough Snapple. Caitie, something that I want to make sure that all of my future listeners can do is find you, follow you, discover your work. So Caitie, where can people find your work? Where can people follow you in your journey of being honest and real about the ups and downs of running a business?
Okay, great. Let's see. You can find me on my website. Everybody spells my name wrong, so it's CAITIEMCCABE. I'm sure that'll be written somewhere, so it'll be fine. You can find me there. It's CaitieMcCabe.com. My Instagram that I am trying to pay attention to is at Caitie McCabe Photo, I think, and Facebook, and I'm everywhere as Caitie McCabe. So if you just Google that, you'll find me everywhere.
Excellent. Well, it's been really good having you on The Founder's Mind. I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Founder's Mind. On the next episode, I have Ginny O, the founder of Wander, a product design company. Listen into Ginny's episode and learn about how she's built a business around her lifestyle and leveraged her creativity and guts to scale the business. To make sure you don't miss any awesome wisdom from guests of The Founder's Mind, be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, and follow along on social at The Founder's Mind. You can also find more information about guests, their book recommendations, and other insights on thefoundersmind.com. I look forward to sharing future episodes with you all, and don't forget, rating and reviewing The Founder's Mind means a lot and is greatly appreciated. Until next time, take care.
In a world going through all of this insanity and try to bring new ideas, make them a reality. Illuminate in the thoughts, make it a priority to implement what you learn. What you get is what you be. In a world full of noise, hard to find that clarity to try to lead subtly, never full of vanity, and try to change something small or try to change humanity. Power forward through the dark, founder's mind is what you see.